And I'm joined on the line right now by Jen Benson to talk about ultra running. So ultra running is just an epic way of saying running really, really far. But there's so many stories behind it. Jen's got her own experiences herself that she talks about, and also some science behind what it takes on the human body and the real history of ultramarathon running and women's place within that. So I think it's going to be a really in-depth discussion covering a lot of topics. Jen, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. How are you doing?
Yes, no, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Have you been running today?
Not yet. No, I've got one planned for later. So.
How often do you run? Is running something that you do every single day a huge part of your life?
Yeah, I think default is to run. And quite often, even if I'm a bit tired from work or parenting or anything, I kind of don't fancy a run, but then I go for a run and feel loads better. So almost every day I run. Some days, especially if it's like a big training week, I'll have a day off and just have a rest day, which is also really important for recovering and letting the muscles recover and regenerate and things. So, but most days I do run for headspace as well as everything else.
We'll go into that in very, very shortly about, what the body actually needs to be able to complete these runs. But, just building up a little bit of a picture about you. You do these ultra marathon runs, which are really long distance. But what about on a daily basis? You're going today, it's after work, you've got childcare, you've got all this stuff on. What sort of running distances are manageable for you on, in normal life?
Normal life, probably 5 to 10 miles a day is fairly average. If I'm training for a big race, I'll try and get a long run in each week. So that could be 20, maybe edging up towards 30 miles occasionally, but fairly regular 20 milers in the build up to a big race. So I've got a 180 kilometer race coming up at the end of September. So I'm just starting to ramp up the mileage and do some longer runs. But after a longer run, when I've got a bit of a relaxed time, I'll kind of run 5 or 6 miles most days. Sometimes I'll take the kids on their bikes and I'll take the dog as well. So it sort of fits around family, or I'll meet a friend and go for a nice chatty run as well.
Oh, that's really, really cool. So you're doing, was it 180 kilometers as a race? When does a running race become an ultra running race? What distances categorizes it?
So officially anything over a marathon. So you could be kind of pedantic and say 26.3 miles or 43 kilometers is a marathon. But in reality, the shortest ultras tend to be about 50 kilometers. And then they tend to go up to 50 miles, 100 kilometers, 100 miles. And then some crazy people do 200 milers, or I think the longest ultra in the world currently is the 3,100 mile race, which is around a mile block in New York. So it's pretty crazy.
Oh my goodness. I thought you were going to say it's like the length of like America or West Coast. I mean, God, even the background isn't going to be changing. What you're looking at, that takes some serious mental power as well as physical power, I'd imagine.
It really does. Yeah.
When you were getting into it, did you start small and build up, or did you just start big and stay big?
Yeah, I think I got into running. I had a big car crash in my early 20s, and I'd done a bit of running before then, but like a lot of people in their early 20s, I was at uni, drinking too much, partying too much. And I think I had a car crash in Italy and couldn't walk for a bit after that. And it really brought home to me what a privilege it is to have a body that works. And I just thought I need to look after my body better than I was doing. And so I started literally running for 5 minutes and then walking and building up really gradually. And then I was doing a kind of 5K block. And then I started seeing races, and I started out with road races, so road half marathons, road marathons, and then discovered the trails. And they're so exciting. The places they take you, you can run in the mountains, you can run on the coast path, all these. It's like combining running with an adventure, and that really stole my heart. And that's kind of where I do all my running now. So, I definitely built up gradually, and I'd probably been running for maybe 10 years before I did my first ultra. So So it was quite a gradual process to that point.
Yeah, that really does sort of build up a picture of how long it could take. Because if you really started at zero, like you did, that's actually pretty inspiring, to be honest. And so you're saying, you want to take care of your body. You started to realize that it was a privilege to be able to move your body. What else do you need to do to make sure you look after yourself? Because I imagine there are high risks as well, risks of perhaps repetitive strain or impact. So I imagine there's a bit of a balance. What sort of things do you need to take care of?
Yeah, I mean, I think overuse injuries are probably the most common ones with running. It's very repetitive, especially if you're running on the roads. You're kind of hitting the ground with quite like 3+ times your body weight. So with every footfall, thousands of times over a run. So building up gradually is key. So allowing your body to adapt gradually to those forces that are specific to running. Wearing shoes that are appropriate to the kind of running you're doing. So if you're running on the road, that might be a slightly more cushioned shoe. If you're running on trails, something a bit grippy, because obviously the other thing you can do is fall over, which is quite a lot more common in trail running. And that's not something you want to do either. So, it's just building up gradually and allowing your body to adapt, which takes time. Oh. And then obviously there's fueling. So making sure that you're giving your body enough energy to both fuel your training, but also fuel all those metabolic processes like bone regeneration and muscles and everything that's going on kind of behind the scenes when you're running.
And how did you inform yourself about everything you need to do? Is it just something that you picked up as you go along, or have you worked with a coach, studied?
Well, I did a podiatry degree. So my first degree was in podiatry because as a result of running, I was getting foot injuries, and I saw a podiatrist and was really interested in what she did. So I went to uni a bit earlier on and then stopped and then went back and did podiatry. So that was really interesting. So I learned about running biomechanics and running gait and all the various injuries that can happen to our feet and our lower limbs. So everything from blisters and black toenails to plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendinopathy and all those things. So that was a really good learning experience. And then I went on and did a master's in sport and exercise medicine, specializing in distance running. So that was a lot more in depth and covered lots of different aspects. And I worked as a podiatrist, treating runners. I'm currently doing a PhD in the kind of philosophy and psychology of endurance. So kind of moved from the feet up to the more in the head, looking at kind of meanings of endurance, why we do what we do, and our kind of embodied experiences of running a long way, which is equally fascinating, but a bit different.
Oh, I'm absolutely fascinated by that aspect of it as well, because you could so easily, write a book, say, listing A to B, these are the sorts of things you need to do to look after yourself if you're long distance running. But the spice of life, at least in my eyes, is how we feel about things, the experiences we get out of doing everything. So, what sort of tidbits do you have or insights have you got to share about that sort of philosophy of endurance running?
I think what got me into it was I started looking at the biomechanics of injury, kind of a much more physical side of injury. And what I realized from talking to runners is that one person's injury, it might be an excuse not to go for a run, whereas another person might have the same injury, but because of what running means to them, they might just carry on running almost to the point of not being able to run at all because running is so important to them. They keep running through an injury. So two people might have exactly the same injury, but the meaning of that injury to them and the context of running within their life and within their identity and things it means that the result of that injury is completely different. And that kind of got me thinking that it's all very well looking at risk factors for injury and injury rates and things, but actually it was what was going on underneath, what the meaning of those injuries to those people were, that was what would fascinate me. So I'm looking at the moment at new runners and their experiences of getting into running and learning sort of through the Couch to 5K process to become runners, what that's like, how your body changes over time. And I'm also looking at experienced ultra runners and looking at differences and similarities between the two groups and their experiences of enduring as runners. And And obviously there are differences, but there are also lots of really interesting similarities, like experiences of pain and experiences of other people that we meet when we're out running. So a run can be completely transformed depending on who you meet when you're out running. And something that's really interesting is who you're running with as well. So when we're running with somebody else, if that's someone we trust, we actually use less energy because we kind of share that, we're able to share resources with that person. So if we're out on our own, especially if it's sort of in the middle of nowhere, we're alert, we're ready for anything to happen. It's quite energy consuming just having to deal with everything all the potential things that could happen. Whereas if we're sharing that experience with somebody else, not only does the time pass more quickly because we can chat, but actually we use less energy. It's less energy costly to share a run with somebody else. So things like that are really interesting, that kind of tying in of the psychology and the physiology that goes on. But yeah, pain is a really interesting one. And I think particularly with new runners, we shy away from talking about pain, and we don't want to say running can be painful. It can be really uncomfortable because we want to encourage people to do it, and we want to focus on the good things. But actually, when you look at new runners talking about pain, it's quite a badge of honor. You know, they go through, and it's not injuring pain. It's just the pain of carrying on when you want to stop. And I think that's quite an interesting commonality, is almost the joy of pain, the joy of enduring discomfort, because then when it stops, you feel really awesome. And it doesn't matter what level you're at. Once you've overcome that desire to stop, push through all that discomfort, when you then stop, you just feel a bit badass.
Yeah, I definitely think that is a link in lots of sports. You know, the Sufferfest and the people going to the gym or whatever. You do feel very proud of yourself, and a sense of achievement as well, because it wasn't just an easy thing to do. Do you find that people, I mean, runners come from all sorts of backgrounds, don't they? You know, there's no one type of runner. What sort of commonalities do you find in people who really get hooked on that desire to push through pain and all that sort of thing? Is there other things that people have gone through that make them that type of person?
I think with ultra running, and especially the really long, difficult races. So I don't know if you've heard of Jasmine Paris, who recently won the Barkley. Well, she finished it. She was the first woman to finish the Barkley Marathons in America, which is an incredibly difficult race. It's 5 loops. It's over 100 miles, really difficult terrain and conditions. It's self-navigated, and I think it's been going for 30 years, and very few people have ever finished it. And she was the first woman to finish it this year. And she also won outright the Spine race in the UK, which is 260 miles. And she won that whilst expressing milk for her young daughter, and won it overall, and had gone home and had a shower and interviews by the time the second person, who was the first man, finished. So the people that do, it's really interesting. The people who, like Jasmine Paris, who do well at the really long races, tend to be high achievers in other areas of their lives. So she's a vet, a researcher, a lecturer. She has a PhD. And when you look at all the people that finish the Barkley Marathon, they seem to have that commonality. So, and the same with a lot of the people who sort of win and take part in the Spine race and all these longer races. It seems to draw people for whom pushing the boundaries of possibility are something that really motivates them. And that could be in their job or in education, or, you know, in any area of their life. They seem to be high achievers in lots of areas. And that's quite interesting. It's almost like it draws problem solvers, because these really big, long marathons, ultra marathons, are problem solving exercises. Because when you're out there for 20, 30, 40 plus hours, so many things can go wrong. And whether that's like a kit malfunction, or your stomach stops wanting to take in food, so you can't feel yourself, or you twist your ankle, you know, there are so many things over that period of time, especially in mountainous or rough terrain, that can go wrong. So I think it draws problem solvers. And it is really interesting how many people, especially women, who finish high up in these races have also got doctorates. Or, you know, it's quite interesting to and part of that is that they're expensive to do. So it tends to draw people who have higher paid jobs, but it is unusual to have such a density of PhDs, which is something it's really interesting. And I guess it's a similar thing, isn't it? The problem solving, the pushing yourself to see what's possible. And those people are drawn to that in every area of their life, which I found quite interesting.
And so you've talked about Jasmine Paris, but in your book, you also draw on the stories of a few other females. Who else makes it in there and why?
So Courtney Dauwalter is arguably the best female ultra runner of all time. She's still running, still winning in her 40s now. She's won pretty much every big 100-miler out there. And I think she's really inspirational because she is just relentlessly positive whenever you see her, even in the depths of a really hard, gnarly race in the Alps. She's smiling, she's encouraging people, she's like high-fiving the kids on the trail. So I think her positivity is brilliant. And, you know, her social media is one place you can go where there won't be any doom scrolling. I think she's just, so she's amazing. And she is very pro getting women into the sport, because this is a sport where, especially in the longer distances, the gaps between men and women can be smaller, especially when there are lots of other factors. So it's quite an exciting place. So in Western States, which is one of the biggest 100-milers in America, which Courtney's won several times, this year, for example, in the top 20 finishers, 8 of those were women. And it's a very small field. It's a very elite field. So the men's field is very strong, very quality men's field, but we've still got 8 women finishing in that top 20. So it's a really interesting area for women ultra runners at the moment as well. But yes, coming back to your question, other than Courtney, I interviewed a few women who don't finish in the front, like they don't finish on the podiums, but they've done a lot of races, kind of quietly, like really hardcore races all over the world. I spoke to Emma Stewart, who's a vet here in the UK, who only discovered running shortly before COVID and is now winning races all over the world. So she was not sporty at school, hated running at school, not sporty at university, and then entered a race and did pretty well at it, and is now winning the biggest races all over the world. So it's really interesting, just seeing the different women, different backgrounds.
Lots of stories. And what about you, Jen? What's next for you in terms of running? Have you set you've got this obviously big race coming up in September. Have you got like a whole career worth of races that you want to tick off, or do you have an end point in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think I got into the 100-milers because it was something I wanted to do after having children that I hadn't done before. So just to kind of prove to myself really that I could still go and do hard things, even as a mum in my 40s. So I've done, I think in the book, The Path She Runs, I wrote about trying to get to my first 100-miler and the ups and downs of trying to cross that finish line and actually failing a few times before I managed it. And one of those races was the Arc of Attrition, which is a 100-miler in the winter around the Cornish Coast Path here in the UK. And that was a real bucket list race for me. And I've just finished a 100-kilometre race in Snowdonia. So it's a really mountainous race that I tried twice before and didn't manage to do and managed to do this year. So I've got one more race on that list that I've tried and failed, which is the Beacons Way 100, which is in Wales again here, which I'm aiming for next year. And then I'd really like to go and do some more races in the Alps, because they're just so beautiful. The weather's better than it is here often. And especially the French Alps and the Italian Alps, the people love trail running. They love ultra running. It's much more part of their culture in a way that in UTMB is just huge as a it's like a big festival, annual festival of mountain ultra running. I think they have 10,000 people running across the distances. So I'd love to go out there and do a few more races abroad. I think and the Pyrenees as well. Fantastic races in the Pyrenees. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, the European mountains have definitely got a lot to say for themselves. Utterly beautiful. Anyway, that's all we've got time for. So, Jen, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It's been a pleasure.
Right.
And the book is called The Path She Runs, a personal history of women's ultra running. If you'd like to get your hands on it, you can find it on Amazon or the Talk Radio Europe bookshop. Jen, bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye.